So I think what we're seeing is like the average age of first smartphone has gotten like lower and lower and lower. And now it's something close to like 10 years old, where you're like, that kid's not even like out of elementary school and they're getting a smartphone. And it makes sense logically to me why it's happening, right? Because if they're getting the iPad at age 2, how much different is the smartphone from the iPad? Like it just feels like you're just upgrading to the next thing. But I've tried to explain to parents, so many parents will tell me, well, we're giving them a smartphone, but we're not going to have social media on it. And really, any child safety expert will tell you it's just impossible. It's not true. It's just there are so many back doors. There's thousands of apps. Every app has an in-app browser, like its own portal to the internet. And it's impossible for a parent to effectively lock down a smartphone.
Howdy, everyone, and welcome back to Moment of Truth, the podcast of American Moment. My name is Nick Solheim. I am the CEO of American Moment, and we're very glad to have you back with us this week. We have a very exciting guest, Clare Morell, who's been a longtime friend of American Moment, and also myself and my wife. She's written this very exciting book called The Tech Exit, a practical guide to freeing kids and teens from smartphones, which we had a wide-ranging discussion on today. But before we get to that, always have to flag the website, which our Chief Strategy Officer, Jake Mercier, spent a lot of time putting together. We got a new website, I think, back in January. It looks great. You can find out all the information about the exciting things that we're doing at AmericanMoment.org. Additionally, if you'd like to join us for a myriad of our academic programmings, you can find all of that information there. Clare is a fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Her and her husband, Caleb, live here on Capitol Hill. They've been a great friend to many of the young people in our cadre here in D.C. This book, I think, is very well written, well argued, and provides, especially for you parents out there, a lot of great framework for how to think about technology and your kids. Additionally, if you're a policymaker in D.C. and have some interest in laws that can protect kids online, I would definitely check out this book. So we will go now to Clare Morell. Clare, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
So we always start the show learning about our guests' backgrounds. I think you have much more interesting background than most of the people we have on this show. And we've also, my wife and I have known you for a number of years. We've had dinner at your place here on the Hill. So tell us a little bit about you, how you ended up writing a book in your life here in D.C.
Yeah, I have been in D.C. now since 2011. I came here to go to college as a college student at Georgetown, where I met my husband. So we were students there. That's how we found our church, Capitol Baptist. We were involved in a campus ministry. My husband decided to go into pastoral ministry. Initially worked on campus at Georgetown and then transitioned to working for our church. And that's when we moved physically to the Capitol Hill neighborhood back in, oh my goodness now, like 2019.
Yeah.
So it's been a while that we've been physically on Capitol Hill. My career path was I graduated from college, initially worked at a law firm as a paralegal, and then went and served in the first Trump administration at the Department of Justice in their Office on Violence Against Women, which I touch on a little bit in the book. Kind of that was maybe my first exposure to kind of how the internet and these online platforms were unfortunately being used by predators to prey on and exploit, particularly the vulnerable women and children. After that, I worked at the White House in the counsel's office, which was an amazing highlight of my career, getting to work on judicial nominations, trying to nominate really good judges to our federal judiciary. And then I ended my time working for AG Barr. And it was in his front office that I first got kind of my strongest exposure to the harms of big tech. He was really focused on that issue. A lot of people in his office were. So just really understanding that these social media platforms were censoring conservative and Christian viewpoints, but they were also allowing criminal content to happen on their platform with total impunity. Their protection under Section 230, they were not required by law to remove criminal content. And so we were really looking into how human trafficking and sex trafficking, online child sexual abuse was being perpetrated or propagated by these social media platforms, their algorithms, helping connect predators to victims, and then also just sharing that abuse very widely. So that was kind of like my first, oh my goodness, like this is a big problem, and it's private companies that are really facilitating this harm to our children, and there's kind of no legal mechanism to hold them accountable. So that was really eye-opening to me. Then we had our first baby. He was a COVID baby. Our oldest, he's about to turn 5 this June. And I was looking to transition more to being a full-time stay-at-home mom. And I got connected to the Ethics and Public Policy Center, and they wanted to start a project on tech, specifically like a big tech project, which back in like this was like early 2021, there wasn't actually a lot of other conservative organizations with dedicated tech projects. And we both were concerned about the censorship side of things, but also the harms to children and families. And because of my work for the Attorney General, they brought me on to start that project. And so that is what I have done the last 4 years. So that's kind of my background. My professional expertise has been a tech kind of policy expert and specifically working on what laws do we need to better back parents up and protect our kids, both at the state level and also the federal level. So I've been involved with a lot of state laws and state legislation, putting out kind of model laws around age restricting pornography websites, parental consent for social media, and then have also been involved in helping members of Congress on the Hill as they deliberate and consider different laws to protect kids online. So that's my professional background.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm a mom. I've got 3 kids, and so really my driving passion behind all my work is I think first and foremost about my own kids, but then also my friends who are parents, my church community, like all the parents that I see on the front lines protecting our kids. And I want to really protect all of America's children. Like they are the most vulnerable. They are also our next generation. And if we don't do things now to protect them, like I fear it's going to be too late. And so that is what motivates me in my work is both my personal life as a mom and then also my desire and passion to protect the vulnerable.
Right. So you've written this great book that we've got up behind you here. Tell us a bit of the thesis behind
Yeah.
it. You go through a lot of problem diagnosis, but also, some laws that we could put into
Mm,
place that would help parents
yeah.
better protect their kids. Start with the problem diagnosis side of
Yeah.
things. Like what's going on?
Yeah. So the kind of origin story behind the book was that in my tech policy work, I was staring like straight on at all the dangers and harms of social media and smartphones to kids, like diving into the research, not just the mental health problems, but also the threats of online predators, sextortion schemes, AI deepfakes, just all the harms that these technologies really introduce to a child. And that research had convinced me as a parent that I was never going to give these own technologies to my kids. But I was asked frequently when I would give public speaking events on my policy work, parents would come up to me afterwards and say, okay, well, what should I do? Like, I'm a parent. What would you advise? And I would tell them that. I'm like, I would never give these things to my own kids. And they're like, well, how old are your kids? I'm
Yeah.
like, well, they're all like 4 years old and under. So they're like, well, you haven't, navigated the teen years. Like, it's really hard. Like, we feel like we're under immense pressure. All my kids' friends have them. So I really felt for parents and I was like, I need to find a good resource to recommend to them that will give them this advice that I'm recommending, but has the credibility to say, this is how you do it through the teen years. So I basically started reading every parenting book on tech that I could find. And I found them all really deeply unsatisfying in the sense that they were pretty honest about how bad the harms were, but then their solutions were always these kind of moderate, like harm reduction measures, like this acceptance of some type of inevitability about smartphones and social media. So like the best parents can do are screen time limits, parental controls, and like talking to your kids about technology. And that felt just like terribly, just really unmatched to the level of harms. I'm like, this doesn't feel commensurate. Like the harms are this bad, and yet our solutions are kind of like putting band-aids on the problem. And so I was talking to my boss, Ryan Anderson, at the Ethics and Public Policy Center about this, kind of lamenting I couldn't find a good book really to recommend to parents. And he was like, Claire, I think you need to write that book. And that was really the journey that I began several years ago in working on this and really set out to interview families who had successfully done this, who had successfully completely opted out of social media and smartphones specifically, but also just a low tech childhood, very free of kind of
Yeah.
interactive screens or video games. And so Yeah, I interviewed dozens of families, heard of hundreds of more families who had done this, and the book is really the distillation of the practical steps and principles of how these families successfully did this. How did they navigate challenges in the teen years and overcome points of resistance in our completely like smartphone saturated app based
Right.
culture. Yeah, and so that's the story. I mean, that's like the whole thesis of the book is not only is it possible, it's also what's best for our kids. And the families who have done this, their kids are flourishing. They recognize it as one of the best parenting decisions that they've made. And so I wanted to then share this advice with other parents of how to do the same.
Yeah. What's the difference in the threats for kids, say our kids' age,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Who
yeah,
are
yeah.
like
Young,
5 and under,
sure. Yeah.
versus like teenagers who are starting to come into the digital world
Yeah.
now?
No, it's a great question. I think at the younger ages, the main concern is just their brain development and
Yeah.
habit
You
formation.
just don't want to turn them into a zombie.
It's crazy how quickly they become addicted because the screens are designed. They're designed to be completely attention consuming. They're designed to be addictive. It creates a very strong craving in a child's brain for more and more and more. And so, yeah, it's really sad when you see a 2-year-old being handed like an iPad because especially like an interactive screen like an iPad is even more addicting than saying sitting down and watching more of like a passive television show. And there was this New York Times article, I think a couple years ago, about Coco Melon, which you
Mm.
may not be familiar with because I feel like you don't do screens for your kids. But basically, like it's a very popular kids show. They sing nursery rhymes and ABCs. And the article was about how the way they designed their shows and their episodes was they would bring kids in and play them an episode. And next to the screen of the episode was a screen of real life
Yeah.
scenes, like a mom cooking in the kitchen, a dad vacuuming, kind of like very mundane. And anytime the child looked away from Coco Melon to like the real life-atron, they would note that where that time was in the episode, and then they'd go back and add like more music and like more
Yeah.
flashing lights and colors because the whole point is that the child, they want them immersed in this show. So even at the youngest ages, these shows, these screens are designed to be addictive and they're very habit forming. And studies have shown, like, especially it was a study of like 2 to 5 year olds that for parents who kind of just handed the child a screen, it really undermined the ability of that child to develop emotional regulation and self control, which I think any parent will say these are like really key skills we're trying to develop. Like, I'm always working on self control with my toddler. And like, no, you have to wait for your dinner. And because I recognize that that is the key to them being a successful adult is they have to have self control. They cannot act on every impulse. And the screen really just completely undermines the parent's hard work to teach that because it
Right.
teaches them that life is for the next like dopamine hit and that they can just scroll and be constantly amused. And it really undermines their creativity, ability to play, entertain themselves. And so I try to tell parents that to me, this whole like screen based childhood, my analogy to it is just like potty training. So you're handing the child a screen as kind of like an easy out when they're throwing a tantrum or you're waiting at a restaurant. You just need them to be entertained. But that short term kind of gain for you or ease of convenience leads to these like long term costs that they're not able to regulate themselves or entertain themselves, and that they're just going to be constantly dependent on screens the rest
Yeah.
of their lives because it's so habit forming. Whereas any parent will tell you, like potty training, if you invest these like short-term costs, like it takes a lot of effort to potty train a
We're in
toddler.
the middle of that right now.
Okay, you understand. Then the long-term gain is they're able to do it by themselves and
Yeah.
you're not changing diapers the rest of your lives. And so I try to tell the parents and convince them it's the same with screens that, yeah, there are short-term costs to teaching your child how to play independently, learn to entertain themselves. It takes some initial parental involvement to help them do that or to help them find their self-control instead of just handing them a screen. But you will reap so many long-term gains from that. No parent wants to be changing a teenager's diaper. And it's like the same with screens. Like you're kind of putting yourself in a hole because then when they're a teenager, they're not able to just entertain themselves. They're still so dependent on like an external form of entertainment and amusement.
Is this sort of like, would it be your view that this is sort of like crack cocaine? Like you just do it once and everything's lost? Like it's a just say no situation? Or is there, say
Mhm.
you're on a 15-hour flight, and
Sure.
you need to entertain them for an hour?
Yeah. I think it's a very legitimate question. I really do try to tell parents, I put it way more in the category of something like a highly addictive drug because
Yeah.
of the way it acts on the brain. It's very similar. They've even done brain imaging studies, and like the brain of like a heavy social media user is like the same, like the brain pathways, it looks the same as someone who's been like addicted to crack cocaine.
Yeah.
So it's not exaggerating to say it elicits a similar response because it's releasing the same neurotransmitter dopamine, which we were talking about, which creates this craving. It's like a very strong craving. So yes, to your point, like you do it once and it just creates that craving to do it again.
Right.
Now, I will say like, that's why I'm very against any type of daily screen time limit because I'm like, no one asks themselves how much fentanyl am I okay with my kid doing each day? Like there's this category where we're like, or even cigarettes. No parent's like, I guess one cigarette a day is okay.
Yeah, he's 3.
He's 3. It's fine. And I'm like, it's the same with screens. Like some type of daily like habit is like really dangerous. Even if it's only 15 minutes, it's such a strong craving for more. And it's not just the opportunity cost of the time it replaces. It actually desensitizes them to real world pleasures over time. So there's this opportunity cost of you're training their affections and their desires towards something, even with that 15 minutes a day. And then they're actually not able to enjoy and experience the real natural world as much. But getting back to your point then, like, what do you do for a 15-hour plane ride? That's where I'm like, well, I don't think you want to do screens the whole time.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I think you want to start, like, we're always, like, we start with all the coloring books and, like, the real books and all the other activities. But, like, maybe the reward for them after doing 10 hours of, like, non-screen play is you let them watch 30 minutes of a movie. And I also am, like, in the categories of screen activities, like, games and interactive things are like much more addictive than watching like a very slow moving movie. Our kids have basically only seen movies that were like made before like the 1990s. We watch Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, and it's fine. I'm kind of like, I don't want them to know there's infinite options out there. It's fine if they know there's like these 3 good movies that are essentially like watching a real life musical. Like it moves very slowly. It's real people. They're singing and dancing and acting. And so I try to explain to parents, like, even when you're making those choices, if you're like, this is actually a situation where we really feel like we need backup from a screen, I'm like, think carefully about it. Yeah, think about what you're putting on that screen. And then just, watch yourself because it becomes such a slippery slope. Like it might start with, oh, it's only 15-hour plane rides, but it can really easily creep into the rest of life.
Right.
So that would be my.
I'm pretty sure my daughter only knows the existence of Little Bear and Franklin.
Right.
Like those
Very
are the only
classic kids shows.
in the rare circumstances in which, you know, she gets to watch something or whatever. It's I think it's only ever been those 2 things.
No, and it's great. And again, like the older the shows or the movies, the slower pace it's going to be. Like the more modern shows, like I was mentioning Cocomelon, it's like the screens, it's like the frames per second are like super accelerated. So it's like switching and it's trying to keep their attention. Whereas like slower moving, old cartoons, old real life things are really different. So I'm not going to like put like a really strong flag in the sand to say like, oh, you know, parents never, ever, ever, even on a 15-hour plane ride do screens. I'm like, well, that would probably be like the very rare exception occasion, but I would.
It'd be a last resort.
It'd be a last resort. And it's like, and it just don't make it a daily habit. That's my main thing is that I think a lot of parents think 15 minutes a day, like, oh, that's such a short amount of time. I'll mitigate the dangers. But the problem is it's every day. Like that is still incredibly habit forming. Anything that you do every day, like that's a deep habit that you'll have as an adult.
We brush our teeth every day.
Yes. And so that's where I'm like, I think it's actually better to have it be like a very rare thing, even if they watched it for like an hour on a road trip, than a like daily thing that they look forward to like every day.
Right.
Yeah.
How do screens then affect as your kids start to get into these like preteen teen years? This is where, you know, in my opinion, it starts to get really bad because the opportunities for bad stuff to happen to your kids online increases exponentially.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. Like kids who have kind of been raised up in screen culture, what happens to them when they start to get 11, 12?
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing is like the average age of first smartphone has gotten like lower and lower and lower. And now it's something close to like 10 years old, where you're like, that kid's not even like out of elementary school and they're getting a smartphone. And it makes sense logically to me why it's happening, right? Because if they're getting the iPad at age 2, how much different is the smartphone from the iPad? Like, it just feels like you're just upgrading to the next thing. But I've tried to explain to parents, so many parents will tell me, well, we're giving them a smartphone, but we're not going to have social media on it. And really, any child safety expert will tell you it's just impossible. It's not true. It's just there are so many back doors. There's thousands of apps. Every app has an in-app browser, like its own portal to the internet. And it's impossible for a parent to effectively lock down a smartphone. It's too difficult. Some of the worst apps too, like Snapchat and TikTok, they're really highly addictive to kids. They don't allow any third-party filters or software to access the app's materials or content. So, the kind of most horrifying example that I like to kind of shock parents with is that a child could click through to the Pornhub website through Snapchat in just like 5 clicks and never leave the app. So a parent just thinks they've been on Snapchat for like an hour, could have no idea that they're actually like on pornography websites through the Snapchat app. And Snapchat doesn't let a parent see into that because they block third-party controls. And so it's just, to me, the smartphone is like a black box. Like it's very difficult for parents to effectively oversee it. Honestly, the phones reset all the time and all your parental control settings get reset and you wouldn't know. There's lots of bugs and loopholes, and kids are so tech savvy. I mean, one mom was saying her son accessed a pornography website through the parental control app. So you're like, what?
How do you even do that?
She said like they had a filter on the thing and then they had a parental control app. And because they were like using different VPNs or something, that the filter couldn't filter within this like parental control app they had set up. And he just went to like the help section in the app, was able to get onto an internet browser and access a pornography website. And you're like, the mom is thinking to herself, I mean, like, how would I have even known that? Like, I thought I was putting everything I thought would protect him like on this phone. And so that's why I feel for parents, because I think they've been lied to, mainly by the tech companies who have said, you can use our products, your kids can use our products and they'll be safe. All you have to do is enable the parental controls. And so I have a whole chapter dedicated to this in the book, just that parental controls are a myth. This is the biggest myth that parents have been sold, because any parent will tell you anecdotally, and I can tell you from all my research, that they just are not fully effective.
Right.
And so that is the danger then when you get into the teen years. I think there is immense pressure culturally to then just give your child a smartphone. Parents really like resist that decision, but feel pressured into it. And then when they do hand over a smartphone to a child, they think, well, I'm protecting them because I've put all these parental controls in place. And what I'm trying to kind of pull the veil back on in my book is that actually the controls that you think are doing this are not actually protecting your kid.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's why I argue for this maximal position of just opting out. Actually, your kid can survive without a smartphone. In fact, adults can too. Like I think we're just so, the smartphone app-based culture is so ingrained in us that it seems shocking that a child could go through high school without a smartphone, but indeed they can. And that's what I try to explain how to do that in the book.
So we've covered a little bit about why the parental controls as you get into those teen years don't work very well. Why isn't the screen time helpful?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things I try to explain is that you have to understand the underlying business model behind social media platforms, which is they want to maximize attention, time, and data, because that is their entire business model. And so they're not designing a product that's neutral. They're designing a product that's highly addictive to your child. And what that means is that the screen time limit doesn't match on to a child's mental or emotional time spent on a platform. They may only go on for 20 minutes a day, and they can live in that virtual world long after they leave it, because they're thinking the app has made them wonder constantly, like, who's liked my post? How many more followers do I have? What are my friends doing on there while I'm not there? Like, it mentally and emotionally becomes all consuming. And you were talking about these preteen years, ages like 10 to 12 is a really critical period of brain development where a human's brain's dopamine receptors multiply. And part of that is because this period of development, children are starting to turn outwards more from their family, and their desire for peer approval and acceptance really increases. And it's supposed to be a good social mechanism. It's supposed to help you then form friendships and relationships with your broader community outside of your family. But it's being completely hijacked by social media, because now that desire for social approval has been transformed into this like form of likes and followers, like metrics have been attached to this. And so what happens then is kids are just constantly consumed by how many followers or likes they may have gotten on something. And so even if you set a daily time limit, their mental and emotional time is just completely overtaken by the virtual world.
Yeah, you said something a little bit ago about it's possible for adults to live without a smartphone too. Did you talk to any of these people that are like still using flip phones?
Yeah, so a couple of the parents I interviewed have like either really significantly like dumbed down their smartphones to take like the internet browser completely off of it. And so essentially it's like a dumb phone because they have no internet or other apps like that. I personally have not had a smartphone for 2 years now.
Wow.
I know other parents who have gone to like a light phone, or like what I have is the wise phone, which is a play on smart. Don't be smart, be wise.
Hmm.
So I've loved the wise phone. It's like a little bit in between what I would say like a minimalist phone would be like a flip phone, or the light phone, which basically has like nothing on it. It's just text and talk. What I have is the wise phone. It is meant to be like a healthier version of a smartphone. So it doesn't have internet, social media, or other addictive, immersive apps, but it has apps that adults generally use as tools. So
Yeah.
like I have Uber, Venmo, my bank.
Yeah.
Things that are truly tools that aren't going to be addictive. I'm not going to be like, oh, can't wait to get on my banking app again. It's just like actual tools that now are really helpful to navigating our world and the way it's set up today. Like even like you can't really park anywhere in DC unless you have like Park Mobile. You know what I'm saying? So it's like those kinds of things. So I found that very helpful because it gives me the tools I need, but I'm not going to get sucked down a rabbit hole when I go on my phone. If I'm out with my kids, I can't get to the internet, my email, or social media. So it keeps me very present. So I will say like there are, even today, more than there were like 5 years ago, there's really good alternative phone options. Because I think we've recognized as a culture, like these things are harmful for kids. They're also not great for adults. Like they're really short circuiting our attention spans, our ability to focus, and just honestly, the biggest thing, our ability to be present with other people. I mean, I feel like, you recognize this in yourself. Like you feel drawn to check your phone in a social setting. Like you don't want to do that, but the device, the way it's designed, has that effect even on adults. And so I think you see more and more adults wanting to kind of scale back their own tech use, dumb down their own phones, or opt for these alternatives. So I think actually helping your kids navigate the teen years and prepare for adulthood without a smartphone may even just set them up to live their adult lives either with like a very minimal phone or just like a very healthy relationship with a smartphone whenever they get one, because they've formed their core habits and life skills without one. Like ages 0 to 18, if those are protected, I mean, like you really set them up for success. And that was what I found. In my book, I interview grown children who went through what I call the kind of tech exit lifestyle with their family. And some of them have chosen to not get one as an adult, like even when they could get a smartphone. Other kids just have gotten one and they really have a very limited use relationship with it, because they'll recognize for themselves if they're using it too much. Like, because they can tell, because they know the difference of what life was like without it, which is like something that they'll always have. Like you're giving your child this core memory of ages 0 to 18 with no smartphone. And that will always serve for them as like a tether to the real world. Like they'll always know and recognize in themselves that they're ever using technology too much, because they've had the core years of their lives and development, like their core memories, formed without it. So that's what I'm really trying to argue for in the book.
So for parents who may be listening to this and thinking, oh gosh, I've ruined my kids already. It's over. I showed them Coco Melon one time.
Oh, no.
What do they do?
Yeah. So actually, my book tries to really give parents the hope that it's never too late.
Yeah.
And honestly, the younger, the better, because their brains are really plastic and that they can be rewired. And so I would just say, first of all, it's never too late. Second, the younger, the better. So if you've realized this now, like just scaling back as soon as possible. But the third thing I will say is that it's not too late even for teenagers. I've heard some parents say, well, my son is, 14 now. We gave him a smartphone a few years ago. He's going to leave for college in 4 years. So kind of like, what's the point of taking it away now? And I'm like, no. You're looking at this backwards. You have 4 more years to help your son develop habits before college without a smartphone. Yeah. 4 years is a lot of time. Yeah. Like reverse course today, and you have 4 more years to help him become a mature adult without a smartphone. So it's not too late to take away the phone. I walk parents through step by step in the book how to do a digital detox. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The first 2 weeks, 3 weeks will be incredibly hard. It's like taking a drug away from an addict. Like they have formed a really strong craving to this. But I think, like the encouraging news is we see adults get sober. Like it is possible to detox from things that you are addicted to.
Yeah.
It is. And so just even that kind of strong compulsion or craving you see in a child and you think to yourself, we'll never be able to take it away. Like we'll never be able to do life without a screen. It's not true. Their brain will reset. Like it takes time, but they will be able to actually form habits again without it.
Right.
And so that's what I my book is not meant to judge or shame parents. Like parents are doing the best they can with the information they have today. But when you get new information that shows you that this isn't good for your kids, it's never too late to make a change. And so I try to just walk parents through how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, something I think that's been gaining a lot of steam recently is I've talked to other parents who, have kids our age, they're
Yeah.
buying their first house, whatever, is this sort of intentional decision to not have a TV,
Oh
to
yeah.
not have like a
Yeah.
living room
Yeah.
centered around
Mm.
a TV.
Mhm.
You and I were talking before the show. You
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
also
yeah.
do something similar.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about some of the
Yeah.
benefits of doing that aside from just like even just not always having the opportunity to
Mm.
present this stuff to your kids, but even the
Yeah.
way it makes your house feel different.
Yeah.
This is one thing that
Oh,
I've noticed.
definitely. Yeah, I think, the average American household probably has a large TV somewhere prominent in the living room, and that's just been a part of the culture, I think, the last several years, and the family kind of becomes oriented around that, and just even the visuals that we have in our house send a message to our kids. It sends a message about what's important, what our home is centered around and oriented around, and kids notice, like and especially once they see something on the TV, they're like, that device can show me really cool and exciting things. So every time I walk by it, I'm gonna be like, "Mom, can I watch the TV?" And like, I mean, maybe you're a parent who can resist that request like 5 times, but then it's the end of the day, and the seventh time the kids ask, you're like, "Oh, fine, just watch a show." I think it becomes too easily a crutch for parents
Yeah.
and families when it's just easily available. And so I think I say this in the book, like if you're on a diet, you don't keep junk food like stashed in your pantry so that in a
Right.
moment of weakness, you're just going to go binge. No, like you just get that stuff out of your house. And it's the same if you're like truly a parent who's like, I'm trying not to have my kids addicted to screens. It's like, why would we have a giant television then be the center of our living room if we're trying not to use it? It doesn't really seem to make a lot of logical sense.
Yeah.
So I would encourage parents to think about that. Like, I'm not saying you can't have any TV, but what is your home like centered around? What are your kids taking in? Is it an arts and crafts table or like for us, it's like a piano in our living room? Like
Yeah.
that's the main thing they're drawn to because they're like, oh, the piano's so fun. I'm just going to go play on the piano. But I think if it was a TV, they'd be drawn to like asking me to turn that on all the time. And I don't want to do that. And so,
Right.
I'm not saying you can't ever watch something. We've chosen that Friday night is pizza night. We make homemade pizzas and we watch like 30 minutes of something before they go to bed. And we really only started this once they were older. Like maybe my oldest was like 3.5 or something. But mainly what we watch is what my kids call family pictures, which is just our family home videos, which is really sweet because it actually kind of cements a lot of these childhood memories for them, like rewatching things that we
Right.
did as a family. I grew up with family home videos. And so that's the majority of what they watch. And then on a rare occasion, it's like, I don't know, Mary Poppins or The Sound of Music. Like we've shown them very limited things. They don't even ever watch like the full movie. They get like 30 minutes of it and then they go to bed. So, all that to say, my husband like physically pulls our TV out from where it's hidden behind our couch because he doesn't want that to be a visual focus during the week. And so,
Right.
I mean, that takes tremendous effort. Not even strong enough to lift it. And so I'm never going to like be tempted to pull the TV out during the week if I'm trying to get dinner ready. I'm going to come up with something else for the kids to do.
Yeah.
Just because we've made it like actually just hard for ourselves to watch it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's a good thing. It makes it that much harder to like
Yes.
be able to cave and get it out.
Yeah, and you mentioned like you guys have a projector. We have
Yeah.
several friends who do that. They just project from their laptops that they want to do something, but it's not like this centerpiece. Other families I know like just hide it away in the basement. It's just out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to do this creatively, I think.
I learned the projector idea from my dad. So
Yeah.
when I was growing up, we did not have a TV. And my dad had a projector and we would watch,
Aw.
my parents grew up largely in the 80s. They had me really young. And so it was all like 80s movies. So
Yeah.
I've totally missed like when I was coming up in the 90s and early 2000s, I
Yeah.
don't know any of that pop culture stuff. It's like all 80s knowledge because it was
Amazing.
movies I
Yes.
watched on the projector with my parents, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, sweet.
when I talk to people about this, you know, whether it's friends at church
Yeah.
or, you know, young guys that we meet through American Moment who are having kids and we're having
Yeah.
conversations about this, it's sort of like the the big objection that I get is like, what do my wife and I do together? Like
Yeah.
after the kids go to bed, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we're just supposed to
We're just
sit and
supposed
like
to watch
yeah,
something.
we're
Yeah.
just supposed to like read books and knead
Oh, yeah.
bread, you know? Like what's the how have you guys found it actually enables you to spend
Oh,
more
yeah.
productive time
Oh,
together?
totally. I think that, earlier in our marriage when I don't know, we're just not as thoughtful about this. It was just like the default to put on some Netflix show. But I think since having kids and thinking about what we want for them, and other families said this when I was interviewing them for the book, it does make you reflect on your own tech use. And like, why would I model something for my kids that I don't want them to repeat? Like, if we're just watching Netflix at night, well, then like eventually our kids are gonna just catch on to that. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, but that's not the like life I want for them. And so it was really helpful in kind of reorienting for us. And I think we recognized it's okay if my husband's Caleb, if we want to watch, like Caleb and I want to watch a show or a movie on a Friday or Saturday night, but it's not going to be a daily, nightly routine for us
Yeah.
because there's other meaningful things we want to do with our time. I think we do a variety of things. Often we'll just make tea and sit on the couch and just talk and catch up from our days. I mean, I'm sure you understand it's a busy parent. Like
Yeah.
the day like with kids goes by so fast. It's like, oh, hey, there you are. Like good to see you again. Like we've just been kind of hustling, getting kids down, cleaning up our house all
Yeah.
day. And so
I was
it's just
doing her bath time, you were
yes,
doing his
you were
bath
getting him
time.
to bed. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
like a lot of it is like divide and conquer all day. And so it's nice for us to just like sit down and catch up on our days.
Yeah.
Or we've been really trying to be disciplined about just going down to bed at like 9 so we can actually read before we go to bed. I
Yeah.
feel like, if we'd watch a show, then by the time it's over, you're tired and you just go to bed. And so we've really improved the amount of time we have for reading and other things. And then often we will actually use the like post bedtime window to have friends over, especially like married couples who don't have kids. It's a
Yeah.
great hospitality window for us. So often we'll just say, hey, come over, have tea and cookies with us, and we can catch up. Our kids will be asleep. We can have some nice adult conversation. So it's also become a great window of time for us to use for just, hospitality with church members, other people we're trying to just get time with.
Yeah, the thing that I've discovered is usually when we do end up watching something, say on the weekend or whatever, we'll only make it like 20 minutes before. Oh, I just remembered this thing from today. We should talk about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. No, it's interesting how your habits kind of change where you're like, oh man, this like even just watching something feels too long. You're kind of like used to not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great.
an hour is how long meetings are, and I don't want to be doing meetings. I want to hang out with my wife when I get home.
Oh, that's
Let's talk about the phenomenon of iPad kids. This
Mhm.
is very apparent to me anytime we go out to eat, which we don't do a lot.
Yeah.
But when we do, it feels like now maybe this is not the case here in DC, but where I live out in West Virginia, it's like
Mhm.
by and large, like a lot of people
Yes.
are iPad kids. Like
iPad
most kids you'll see out in public are
Airports, metro,
right.
like it's just always that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. I honestly, I feel for parents in the sense that I think as technologies became more widely available and more affordable, it became like this easy crutch for parents. And I think, unfortunately, I think it's been sold to parents as something that will make your parenting job easier. Like
Mm.
when you just hand a device to your kid, it's become like the new pacifier. Like,
Right.
whenever the pacifier was invented, oh my goodness, amazing. Just pop the pacifier in, the kid stops crying. The iPad's the new like digital pacifier, and it works beyond the ages even a pacifier would in
Right.
the sense that any kid having a hard time, having a hard moment, you need them to be distracted and well behaved at a restaurant. The solution, instead of parenting your child to develop the skills they need to resolve whatever issue, you're just giving the band-aid of the iPad. So my
Right.
philosophy is that it's unfortunately it was both a combination of this kind of like the rise and availability of this technology, and then also I think sadly just a decline in parenting in terms of parents having a really clear understanding of what their purpose and role is as a
Right.
parent. Is parenting just to survive childhood, like just to get your kid to be in like reach adulthood.
Yeah, to get them out of the
Or
house.
yeah, or you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we're just making it through." Like, I hear that from parents all the time, like, "Oh, it's just survival." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it can't always be just survival." I get that there are seasons of parenting, like we just had a newborn. It's okay, it's a little bit survival mode. I don't have as much time and attention as I might normally to invest in the skills I'm trying to have my children develop. But
Right.
it can't always just be survival mode, and I feel like, unfortunately, the goals for parenting have become very shallow culturally. And I think, I think it's different in a lot of Christian communities. Parents have a little bit of a deeper understanding of like what the purpose of parenting is. Like, I'm trying to raise this child, not just to survive to adulthood, but to be a flourishing, thriving adult who, knows and loves God, knows how to love and serve other people, has self control, has the ability to think critically and read deeply, and has a desire to pursue truth and beauty and knowledge. And so I think there is like we need both a deeper understanding of our purpose and role as parents, to really, I think, effectively kind of push like the iPad out of childhood, because I
Right.
think it's both that this technology is so available, and then we've just, unfortunately, I think, as a culture, leaned into a lot of gentle parenting, which is just very like child led. Like, if the child wants the iPad, we give him the iPad, or like this is just kind of the easy way out. Like, I don't have very deep goals as a parent of what I'm
Right.
trying to train my child in. Because if you have that, then you immediately see this iPad is not helping me reach the goals that I have as a parent for what I'm trying to train my child into. So I think we actually need a revitalization of a strong, kind of robust parenting philosophy, because this is the next generation of Americans. Like,
Yeah.
this really matters how we're raising them. And I don't think we just want them to survive till adulthood. And I also don't think um, we want to adopt the cultural mindset of this gentle parenting, which really just says that kids know what's best for them. I think it's obvious that, I mean, kids are going to choose to eat sugar, or they're going to choose to watch an iPad, and that we as the parents know what's best for them. So I would love to see a really like healthy restoration of parental authority, loving authority used to flourish our children. I think is really necessary.
Yeah. It is definitely harder to take your kids out to dinner without an iPad
Oh,
because there's so much
100%
going on.
harder. Yeah.
But it is really rewarding. Like, it's something that I learned when I was growing up because I grew up an only child.
Yeah.
Every time we were going out to dinner, it was like with other adults. And
Yeah.
so it was like learning
Learning how to
how to
talk to
speak to
adults.
adults. And we live really close to my in-laws. And so, like, it's kind of funny. Every time we go out
Mhm.
to dinner, our daughter, like, kind of talks like an adult. She's
Yeah.
like, Mimi, I did this today. And then I went to the park and then I swung and then I took a nap. And now we're here at dinner.
Amazing.
Um,
No, it's so great.
yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to see what they develop when they don't have the iPad. Like, and something we're really practicing with our boys is just manners. Like, I think, yeah, we've used those types of opportunities as like, okay, we're training for you to how to interact in this social setting, which means like honestly a lot of practice at home before they
Yeah.
even go out to a restaurant. Like, we're just practicing table manners every night at dinner. Like, you sit in your seat. You don't just get up and do whatever you want to
Yeah, you
do.
sit on your
You
bottom,
sit
not
on
on
your
your
yeah,
knees.
exactly, and, like, you stay at the table till you're finished, and then you don't leave the table unless you've asked to be excused,
Yeah.
like, just these kind of things that it takes so much work as a parent, and I'm training them in this every day, but, like, I see the long term, like, I see where this is going to lead them, and you short circuit and kinda undercut all of that when you just are like, "You know what? I don't wanna invest all this hard work of training a child to sit still at the table. I'm just gonna bring the iPad to the restaurant."
Right.
Yeah.
So what are some alternatives for entertaining your children? Say you've
Yeah.
decided to go totally screen free.
Mhm.
Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and it's like, yo, what do I do with my kids for like 10 hours every day until dad gets home?
Yeah. Okay, first, just to encourage moms, I think it initially takes more of your time and energy and attention and involvement, but actually it really pretty quickly like starts to pay itself off in that your kids then learn the skills of how to entertain themselves. And then it doesn't feel like, "Oh my goodness, I have 10 hours of time to fill." My kids have actually like learned how to play pretty independently. I mean, for us, my biggest thing is just getting outside. I feel like my encouragement to parents is like, and if you don't have a backyard, if you live in the city like we do, we walk to parks, we walk to playgrounds. We just really try to get outside because my kids, they will run, they will climb trees, they will dig in the dirt. And it's just like kids were made to do this. So you don't actually have to do very much as a parent. Once you get to the park, like they're like okay, like I was made to climb
Yeah.
trees and run around and dig in the dirt. So just getting them outside, and again, it might take some initial involvement. We've kind of learned over time some good just parenting toys to have around. I literally buy my boys shovels and buckets, and
Yeah.
we take them to parks, and they will dig in the dirt with their bucket and shovel for like
Boys
a
do love digging.
solid, yes, like, and they fill it and then they dump it and then they do it again. I'm like, guys, I think I spent, $10 on buckets and shovels on Amazon, and it will entertain them for about like an hour or two,
Yeah.
just the dirt.
Yeah.
So I think it is simpler in some ways than it feels as a parent. So we do a lot of getting outside. We read a lot of books, and that took practice. Like initially, my toddler oldest son did not want to sit still and listen to a book, but I would let him, play with magnetiles or Legos or do something with his hands to keep him occupied, and we would just keep reading. And now it's like he loves it, and he'll just like, "What's the next book? The next book we can read." So we do a lot of books, and then just like arts and crafts activities. I mean, if I'm getting dinner ready, I need him to do something. I just set them up at the table with Play-Doh, and they will just go to town on Play-Doh. Or like right now, my son just loves to cut things with kid scissors, and like we will just give him a stack of construction paper, and he will just cut random pieces of paper for like again like a solid hour, like crayons, like art supplies, and none of these things are that expensive. Like I'm
Right.
I'm just telling parents, like, you can just go to Hobby Lobby, go to your craft store, go on Amazon, and or honestly the dollar store is amazing. I just got a box of 100 pieces of chalk at the dollar store, and that's what they're doing right now. It's summertime. We just throw them outside with the chalk, and they're just chalking up our driveway. So I
Yeah.
feel like you just can really opt for a lot of things that allow them to create and make their own fun. So my boys love magnetiles and Legos, like anything they can build with and like use with their hands are just great activities. And again, you may initially have to kind of show them how to do it, but then now like they're just completely like self-entertained by those things. I will say this, the one thing you have to do as a parent is just embrace the mess.
Yeah.
I think a lot of parents are like, "Oh, buckets and dirt at a park, that just sounds so," yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, my kids are filthy afterwards," but that is like they're getting such a rich childhood. So I inconvenience myself as a parent. Do I love that my kid got Play-Doh all over our dining room table right before dinner? No, but I kind of just accept that's like the cost of letting them play and
Yeah.
create. Yeah, and there's some pickup involved after, but it's 100% worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in our milieu are turning to homeschooling, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
still, by and large, a lot of people in the United States send their kids to public school where screens have
Ugh,
made
terrible.
a a bigger entrance into the
Yes.
way it was when we were kids.
Yeah.
So what are the sort of options now in
Mm,
terms of like screens in schools and what is it doing
yeah.
to kids?
No, it's terrible. I actually think this is the number one challenge really for parents because you can control whether or not your kid gets a smartphone. You can control if you have a TV in the home or if they have social media. The screens being forced upon parents by schools is like the greatest injustice, in my opinion. And parents often feel like they're like, we did everything right. And then the kid got the iPad through the school. And most schools, it's like they won't let the parents put any filters or any external software on it. It's like run by the school. I've recently been in a group chat of people just saying there are so many like loopholes and bugs and holes in the school's software. And so then their kids are exposed to dangerous things and they feel just like they've been trapped and they can't do anything because the school has been in total control of the
Right.
iPad. And so I mean, the couple things I could say practically like a parent can do is, I mean, first of all, just see if you can get an exemption for your child. I know some parents have been successful in doing that, particularly if your child has a learning disability like ADHD or autism. Like those kids are even more like dysregulated by screens, and so it's not helpful for them to do their assignments or class things on screens. So I think trying to even just ask for an exemption. Can my daughter take this test by paper? Can we have the assignment by paper? But the bigger challenge that parents are encountering is that now, schools aren't even buying textbooks. And another school told me that they're having trouble now being able to find their textbooks to purchase because everything in the textbook industry has shifted to be digital and on the screens. So there are some bigger systemic challenges to this. But I and others have been really raising the alarm on kind of this push for EdTech to say that the screens being pushed on the parents and families by the school are actually undermining kids' ability to learn. Like the studies increasingly show kids don't comprehend texts as deeply when they read it on a screen versus in paper, and that they don't develop full literacy if they're not like writing out the alphabet by hand, if they're typing. And so there's actually the brain science shows that kids learn best by pen and paper. And I think that the more that parents just show that they don't want screens in schools by talking to their administrators, their school board members, is really powerful. I was recently in Virginia doing a talk on screen stuff with the First Lady Youngkin. And we got this kind of question from the audience about screens in schools, and an informed member of the audience, and they were asking, can you pass a law in Virginia to just get screens out of schools? And they said, the Commonwealth we defer kind of all those schooling decisions to the local communities. Like it's very localized. And so the First Lady's encouragement was like, please talk to your school board members because this is going to be at a district level. And so I would say if parents are raising their voices in their local school communities, like that is a powerful force for change for trying to get screens out of schools. So yeah, I would highly encourage parents, if that is your situation, if you are in the public school and an iPad or Chromebook is being forced upon you, try to get an exemption. And then raise your voice to your school board members that parents, we don't want this. We want our kids to have books and paper and not be on screens.
When you do this in Loudoun County and you get called like a domestic terrorist or whatever,
go
into your school board.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not like it's an easy fight. And particularly with EdTech, an entire industry of big tech companies is behind this. They have a vested interest in every school board everywhere adopting their products, getting kids used to if you think about it at an even deeper level, you're like, this is really nefarious. Like Google pushing their Chromebooks, they're getting all these kids used to a Google interface. So what products are they going to use then when they're an adult? Well, they're probably going to go to Google. So like there's even this push by the companies to get their products into schools because they have like a bigger business model plan in mind. And on that note, like I just was reading this article that Google's like Gemini AI chatbots are now like being offered to all the students in like Miami-Dade County public schools in Florida. And that's like 107,000 students who are going to be using now Gemini AI chatbots during their school day. And you're like, what? Like, why would that be good for kids to have this like chatbot that they're accessing all day during the school day? Like, that's just gonna be hugely distracting. And like, I can't see any way in which that enhances their learning. It seems just like a shortcut to them, like actually learning the material. So this is probably the biggest issue that I think we're facing in the next several years. I think the tide has kind of already turned on social media and smartphones. Like a lot of people are more aware, and I'm not saying we're completely turned. I just think people are aware of the harms and are scaling back. I think that EdTech is a more kind of subtle influence that people have not kind of woken up to as much yet.
Right.
But I think that that's the next fight. Yeah.
What are some of the laws that we could put in place to protect kids and families?
Yes. So this has been like my bread and butter work has been policy for the last several years. I mean, the number one is just age restricting pornography websites. 23 states have now passed this law. I mean, that's nearly half the country. A lot of it is going to be determined in the next few weeks by how the Supreme Court rules on Texas's age verification law in this big case called Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton. So I'm very eagerly following that case. I will say I was in the courtroom for oral arguments. I'm very encouraged. The justices to me seem to be heavily leaning in favor of Texas in the sense that states need to be able to legislate in this area to protect kids online. And that those laws are having an effect. I mean, Ken Paxton like sued 4 different major pornography companies for not age restricting their material, and then Pornhub just decided rather than comply with the law, they're just not going to do business in Texas at all. So it's just like the laws are having an impact. And the reason I say that in particular is that you might do everything in your power as a parent to protect your child from pornography. Like I didn't give a smartphone. They don't have social media. They don't have access to a computer. But when their friend in class on a smartphone can just pull up Pornhub and lean over and show it to them, like that's a problem. Like it needs to be on the porn sites to make sure their content is age restricted. So that would be a huge win to see those laws continue to go forward. And I'd love to see that on a federal level. Senator Lee has introduced his Screen Act, several Congresses now. And so would love to, hopefully in the wake of the Supreme Court decision, see that happen on a federal level. The other laws I've been involved in are App Store accountability laws, which passed in Utah and Texas. Again, there's members of Congress introducing this on a federal level, which would require app stores to age verify and require parental consent so that kids are not just entering into the App Store without a parent's permission or knowledge, and then they need consent for each app download or purchase. And so this would really help restore parental authority, which has been so absent in all these digital technologies. It's become like the screen or the tech company and the child have a relationship that the parent's not even a part of,
Right.
that they can get onto any app really without a parent's consent. And so, like, 1 in 4 9 to 12-year-old boys have been on an online dating app. Like,
Yeah.
how is that possible that they're getting onto Hinge and Tinder and Bumble? It's because, first of all, the app stores recommend these apps to them, but also the parents have been cut out of the process completely. So those bills, I'm encouraged, are really restoring parental authority over the App Store. And I've also worked on parental consent laws for social media at the state level, again, to say you can't make a social media account if you're under 18 without a parent's consent.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, right now, a child could go behind a parent's back who says, no, you're not getting on social media. They just go use their friend's computer, enter a birth date, and check a box, and they have an account. There's no
Yeah.
parental involvement.
When there's no other like area of public commerce where that's allowed.
No.
Like that you go around, except
Yeah.
for maybe a lot of the trans stuff.
Unfortunately, there's some similarities there. But yes,
Yeah.
parents have been completely cut out of the process, which makes no sense. Even so, like a lot of these states are drawing on contract law to pass these laws to basically say, like, companies that enter contracts with minors are not enforceable unless like a parent is part of that contract. And when you enter a whole host of terms and services, when you create a social media account as a minor, like how can that be enforceable if a parent is
Yeah.
not part of it? So
Yeah.
that's kind of the logic behind these laws.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Claire, where can people follow the important work you're doing, pick
Yeah.
up your new book,
Yes,
all that fun
Please
stuff?
do. Yeah, so the book website is thetechexit.com. Very simple. You can find more about the book there. I will also have practical resources there for parents. So we were talking about screen-free activities. I have a whole like list of activities for parents, especially for the summer when this book is coming out. If you do this digital detox, here are activities for kids. I also wrote a discussion guide so that parents can actually read this book and discuss it together because there's strength in numbers. Find other families to do this with you. And so if you go to thetechexit.com, you'll find all that there. You can order the book through any of the major booksellers that you'd like to. Also, I have a Substack, claremorell.substack.com, where I've been releasing articles leading up to the book, and I'll continue to put resources and content out there, especially if you're interested in the policy work. I both post about policy developments to pay attention to, and then also advice and practical resources for parents. So you can follow me at claremorell.substack.com.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Moment of Truth, and thanks to Claire for coming back on the podcast. Again, the title of her book is The Tech Exit, A Practical Guide to Freeing Kids and Teens from Smartphones. Please make sure to go and find that on, probably don't buy books on Amazon anymore, but if you can buy it at Barnes & Noble or something like that, please do so. My wife and I got an advance copy, and it was fantastic. We really enjoyed reading it. Once again, please rate and review the podcast, 5 stars only. We put a lot of work into putting this show together for you. Additionally, if you have guest recommendations, always happy to take a look at that. Either leave a comment on YouTube, send us an email, whatever. Always happy to take a look at that. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Moment of Truth, and we will see you again next week. Moment of Truth is an American Moment podcast taped at the Conservative Partnership Campus Studios and is produced by Jake Mercier and Hunter Smith, with original graphics and title cards by Jared Cummings. Our intro song is A Minor Struggle by Ryan Serenich, and our website is AmericanMoment.org.